Hello, and welcome to GreyNoise University. I'm Michael Sargovakian, and this module is part of our GreyNoise API and CLI training series. In this module, we will be covering the timeline command in the GreyNoise CLI and Python SDK. The IP timeline endpoints are used to provide a more granular view of the scanning activity for a specific IP that has been observed by GreyNoise. The IP timeline endpoints have three options. 1. A daily summary endpoint that provides granularity at a daily level. 2. An hourly summary endpoint that provides granularity at an hourly level. And 3. A field-based endpoint that provides daily information for a specific field. Return is the IP we are seeing timeline data for, when this scan timeline begins and ends, and the granularity of the search. The default is 1 day. Below in the timeline section provides us with insight that this IP address was seen scanning on 10/29, and the scan was classified as malicious. Classification is also a default return. There are additional parameters we can add to this query with -d, which will filter the number of days in the past we want to display. This will be an integer input, as well as -f, which will change the field name to display data for. This will be a text input. This can be any of destination port, HTTP path, HTTP user agent, source ASN, source org, source RDNS, tag IDs, or classification. Further parameters can be found running GreyNoise timeline-h. For example, with the added parameters, we can see that the field we are seeing timeline data for is the source org field, and that our timeline start and end date is a 7-day period. Another view that's available from timeline is timeline daily. By default, this will show us the previous day. The difference between using timeline and timeline daily is now we are seeing all the fields from a timeline view that have happened today. Additionally, the -d parameter can be added with timeline daily to expand the start date of the query. Lastly, in the CLI, there is timeline hourly, which shows us hour-by-hour events for the last 24 hours. With timeline hourly, we can see a timestamp for when this IP address hit a GreyNoise sensor and what it was scanning for. You can also use the -d parameter with timeline hourly to change the number of days displayed. For the rest of the demonstration, I'll be using PyCharm to interact with the GreyNoise Python SDK. This is what the script looks like to perform a timeline lookup using the SDK. This will use the command timeline. Running this script will return timeline data for this IP address. Added parameters such as days for granularity or field to get information on a specific field can be added. That will look like To make this a timeline daily query, you can update the API client to timeline daily. And again, the difference between using timeline and timeline daily is now we are seeing all the fields from a timeline view that have happened today. The days parameter can also be added to a timeline daily query to see this data over a specific time span. Lastly, the API client can be updated to timeline hourly to retrieve an IP address's hourly summary of noise activity. The days parameter field can also be added to a timeline hourly query to see this data over a specific time span, while also limiting the number of events returned in the response. This concludes this training module. If you have any questions on the topics covered, please reach out to support@greynoise.io.